Tots with our friend Todd Fuhrman, our sports betting analyst. It's brought to you by FanDuel. Todd's rocking it. I don't know if you can show it to us, Todd. You're rocking a very cool CCM hoodie on the show today. Look at this. Look at that.
I try and mix it up, Jay. It's time that we start to focus our attention on the NHL postseason. You have to dress for success, and that's what I try and do to ramp up the street cred that we have for this particular segment every week.
Yeah, we definitely need to ramp that up a little bit. Well, let's talk March Madness, because we're in the Sweet 16, and here's what I noticed. Two of your Cinderella picks, the Creighton Blue Jays and the Gonzaga Bulldogs, they are still alive. Now, I know you weren't overly excited about Zach Edey and Purdue, but they are also in the Sweet 16. Anything that happened in the opening weekend maybe change your tune about one of those three teams, or even another team?
You know, the way this tournament is gone, Jay, it feels like every favorite is still around. I mean, last year it was the ultimate Cinderella tournament when you have a program like FAU and San Diego State getting to the Final Four. What we've seen through the first 4 days of March Madness thus far is double-digit favorites going 15-2 against the spread as it relates to the closing number. You saw Kentucky and Auburn both lose outright as big-time favorites, but all the blue bloods still hanging around. And you mentioned Purdue and some of their shortcomings. Look, they did what good teams are supposed to do. You took care of an inferior Grambling side and absolutely boat race Utah State to get to this point. But this is where I think the two teams that we talked a little bit about in Creighton and Gonzaga have coaching edges that they can lean on. Both teams are underdogs, so they're going to have to pull off modest upsets to try and get to the Elite Eight. But there's no reason to sway from some of those pre-tournament prognostications. But one other team I want to focus on is in the South region. I think when you look at Marquette, the big question I had about this program was Tyler Kolek, their point guard, and his health. Well, he answered all those questions and then some. A pair of games where he had 11 assists in both of those contests. And when you look at Marquette, they're a 6.5 point favorite against NC State in the round of 16. And I quite like their matchup, regardless of who they would draw in the Elite Eight against Duke or Houston. So I think Marquette to win the region at a price north of 2-1 is also a worthwhile investment that you might want to include in your portfolio.
Let's look at the women's side. And we just talked on the show about Caitlin Clark and the fact that Ice Cube wants to pay her millions to play 3-on-3. But she's still in the tournament, and she's still playing college ball. Though you weren't totally jacked about her and Iowa's chances. Do you feel any different about her and Iowa after their opening weekend?
I mean, I'm jacked about the fact that she was offered $5 million for essentially 10 basketball games at 3-on-3. I'm waiting for that kind of paycheck, Jay. Apparently no one has seen my silky smooth jumper on the driveway to try and get me out there. But when you look at Iowa, I think they had a little bit of a wake-up call in their second round game against West Virginia. Now, the officiating might have been a bit skewed when you look at that free throw disparity, and I still have some questions about this Hawkeyes bunch because I think they draw a team in Colorado that's sneaky good. The problem for the Buffaloes, they were a little bit underseeded coming in. They lost 6 out of 8 games, including a conference tournament early exit against Oregon State. But J.R. Payne has a couple of double-digit scores. This team can defend, and we've also seen a little bit of money come in on Colorado. I'm not going to call for the outright upset, and I'm still rooting for Iowa because I would love nothing more than to see some of those big-time storylines end up getting to the Final Four, whether it was South Carolina, USC we talked a little bit about, and, of course, the biggest name in the sport in Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, would be good for the sport. Wow, I just dropped all my cards there. That was weird. I'm so nervous around you, Todd.
Look, Jay, it happens all the time. I mean, you're a consummate pro. I know you've committed everything to memory for this segment each week. So.
Well, okay, let me see if I can do that on our next question, because we're going to talk baseball now. It's the Blue Jays. I actually want, because I was looking through the lines, Todd, I want you to pick between these two potential bets and tell us, Blue Jays fans, which we should invest our money in. How about Jays making the postseason or Jays over-under win total of 86.5?
So I actually lean under on this Jays win total. It did open as high as 88.5 earlier this spring. My biggest question for the Jays, honestly, Jay, is the pitching staff. How healthy is Kevin Gausman? They're going to try and take their time to stretch him out a little bit. You have to love the fact that he's amongst the AL Cy Young favorites there. But it seems like every year we ask the same question. Which Jose Barrios are we going to get? Can we see the 200 strikeout upside, or is he a true middle-of-the-rotation type guy? Yusei Kikuchi, how good will he be there as well? And what exactly does Chris Bassett bring to the mix? We know that the back end of the bullpen, a little bit unsettled. Jordan Romano should be okay in that closer's role. And of course, an offense that I think a lot of us are excited about, but you need some of that young talent to bring their lunch pail game in, game out. I think the American League East will be a lot more competitive than people think. And for that reason, I'm going to make a slight case to go under 86.5 with the Jays this summer.
Is there a postseason individual award, Todd Fuhrman, that you can even see a Blue Jays player winning at this point? Maybe Gausman?
I think Gausman would be the guy that I would keep my eye on. The problem being is the price is just too short for me to get involved, but it's always a good thing when you're mentioned in the same breath as a lot of those front runners early on. And his strikeout potential is among some of the best in the American League. I think the AL Cy Young is going to be fascinating to watch because Corbin Burns comes over from the Milwaukee Brewers. Odds makers are forced to respect it, but I saw a little bit of regression in his numbers. So if we see him fall off a touch in the American League East, that can be a lot more daunting than the NL Central. Gausman stays healthy. He has every peripheral metric that leads you to believe he could be in the thick of this thing, from start to finish this year.
I'm so excited about our last topic. It's the NFL draft. This is just fascinating. Every year it gets more fascinating with the quarterbacks. We know Caleb Williams will likely go number 1 overall to the Bears. At number 2, it gets really interesting. Jaden Daniels and Drake May have been the favorites to go number 2 overall throughout the year, and that's who Washington will probably pick from. But J.J. McCarthy, the Michigan quarterback, has skyrocketed to plus 400. He's the third choice, moving up from 10 to 1 on Monday afternoon. Is this a case of where there's smoke, there's fire, Todd Fuhrman?
When we look at these draft markets, odds makers are forced to respond to every rumor that's out there, because if they hold their ground and they don't work from perfect information, they're going to get a lot of smaller bets that forces them to accumulate liability at a lot faster clip. And we kind of joke about the draft prop market, Jay. If you're not lying, you're not trying as an NFL GM around these pro days and the combine. So if you're the Washington Commanders, why not float it out there that you're extremely interested in J.J. McCarthy? Force the teams that may have him as their number 1 quarterback on their big board to trade up into that 2 spot, allow you to accumulate a few more picks, maybe still be able to get your guy if it is J.J. McCarthy, if it's Jaden Daniels, if it's Drake May. So this is always the interesting time of year where you're going to see major line movement on a lot of these draft props. So unless you have a direct line to the general managers for the teams drafting inside the top 5, be careful how much you read into some of these line moves, because you're going to see this market get sorted out sooner rather than later.
And, the draft itself is coming up sooner rather than later, April the 25th. So Todd and I will have plenty more time to speculate and discuss the odds and the movement as we head to the end of April. Todd, you were awesome. And that hoodie really works on you.
Hey, look, Jay, I'm just glad that you didn't fall into a complete puddle and turn into a mess when you dropped the cards. You were able to regroup. You had a sloppy turnover in the neutral zone. It didn't end up in the back of the net. And that's the kind of adversity that we have to fight against now with a late season playoff push.
That's exactly how we do it.